Right, hello, here we go again. First time I've made a video for quite some time, but I've had a few people saying that they've subscribed to me and things, so I thought I'd better get something done. So here we go. I did a picture last night using very autumny colours, and I'm going to use the same things again today, but we'll go into the process a little bit first. Um, Firstly, I went out with the dogs this afternoon. I don't know if you can see that, but it's in Alan Waters, place where I go, and it's just a overcast Octobery day. But there's several things I like about it. There's a splash of there. There's a splash of colour there, and the thing I really like, don't know if you can see it, but right in there there's a hazel tree which has got lots and lots of things sticking out, and I want to have that about a third of the way in. There's these white trunks going up, and then the rest of it is mid-tones and this path. I'll change the path, it's a bit straight, so I'll make it go a bit curly around there when I come to paint it. So that's the first stage. Second stage, what I prepared earlier. This is just a sketch using these things. They are soluble sketching pencils, and they're like pencils, but they're water soluble. So I do a pencil sketch and then you scribble over it. It comes out almost like a black and white watercolour. So you can see I've simplified it. I've left out the spray there, which I'll put in later. I've got those two trees which are important, that tree which is important. I've just sketched in these which will go in later. There's me hazel tree, which is about a third of the way in, and so and you can see I've bent the path a little bit there. That's what I'll be working from. I doubt if I'll look at the painting again. So here we are. What I've done so far is marked in where those three birch trees are. This is blue masking fluid. What it does is it forms a rubbery skin over the paper, so put the paint on it, then pull that off and it's white underneath. Save me having to fiddle around trying to find stuff. So the palette I'm using, that's the palette. It's a bit of plastic. Technical term for palette is range of colours. What I've got here is ultramarine blue, cadmium yellow, Aureolin, raw sienna, burnt sienna, transparent orange, and I've got alizarin crimson if I want to give it a bit of a kick somewhere. The dark colours, I've got neutral tint, burnt umber, and hooker's green there, which I shall. Hooker's green is a very strange colour. It's like nothing on earth on its own, but if you start mixing it with other colours, it's absolutely lovely. I might not use all of them, but that is the palette of colours that I decided to use yesterday to make autumny pictures with. We'll see if it works again today. Right, okay, first things first. The paint. I'm using SAA paint. I love this stuff. It's artist quality. It's not particularly expensive. You get it through the SAA. I can get it very, very cheap because I'm a professional member. Costs me a fortune in membership fees, but I get loads of discounts, so it's good. Brushes I'm going to use today, couple that I'm not sure where I got from. I've had for years. They're lovely. They're by Stratford and York. No, they don't make brushes anymore. They're out of business. God knows why, because they were the best in the world. But these are squirrel hair. They're absolutely lovely, really hard work. And say that brush is years old and it'll take all sorts of hammer. So first of all, I'm going to do a bit of wet in wet. So I'll just welly some water. You see that it's just going straight over that stuff there. I'm only wetting the top of the paper because I'm going to drop in some colours. This is a Pro Art Squirrel Mop, lovely little brush that comes to a gorgeous point. And paper's wet, so I'll stretch it a little bit. Sorry, mind the baldy head. Just stretch that a little bit. There. Now, while it's still damp, I'm going to mix up very, very thin ultramarine blue and just a touch of burnt umber to it, just to grey it up a little bit because it's autumn. It's very thin, and I'm not gonna do much with it. There's out here I'm putting a bit of blue into it. Because that blue is of a slightly thicker consistency, it should blend rather well. There's a sort of sky at the top. Some more wet, clean water on here. I'll just touch the edge of that. This is where I'm going to put the background trees in. So we need some of this grey colour, a bit thicker. I'm going to mix some green. That's the hooker's green. As I say, if you look at it, it's like nothing on earth. But as soon as I put things to it, in this case, I'm going to put some cadmium yellow into it. And it becomes a lovely bright green then. It's a wonderful mixing colour, but try not to use it on its own too much. Right, now what I've got there is I've got some puddles, a greeny one, a raw sienna one, a dark grey one, and that bluey one. I'll put some yellow into that blue. Some of this I'll reel in. which makes it a much more neutral green. Now into these wet bits, I'm just going to drop in bits of colour. And let it mix and mingle on the paper. Now remember, because we're painting in watercolour, this will dry a lot. That's pure cadmium. It will dry a lot lighter than it is at the moment. What I'm doing here is putting in some darker shades at the base of the tree line. I don't want them too dark, but I want to have a sort of difference. It's this bit there I'm putting in very roughly. Pull some of that out because that's where I'm putting my big willow. Dude, you put some water on it and then suck it out with a damp brush. Now, because I haven't wet the paper any lower than that, the paint will stop. It'll only go into the wet bits. It will spread out in the wet bits. No idea what this is going to look like when it dries, but it will be okay. More bits of tree. One thing you may notice is that I haven't left me glowy bit for the trees. So what I'm going to do is, while it's still damp, you can do anything with watercolour while it's still damp. That's wet water, clean water, and then just suck it out. Feather it around the edges. And that is where my spray of leaves is going to go. So I'm going to mix up transparent orange, a little bit of cadmium, and really bright yellow into there. Now I could make that smaller if I want to. Now while that's all drying, I'm going to do some of the foreground. Now you see I said I curved I'm a messy bugger. Right, okay, there's the picture. I've curved that path, so I'll put that in next. Clean the brush. Clean water. Bit of this grey colour. I'll put some of the neutral in with it. And then I'm going to have my hazel tree about there, about a third of the way in. So suspense building. Bum, bum, bum. That's because I mixed the wrong colour. Right, okay, so from about there, I'm going to go swish, swish. Pull some of that out. There's my path. Never be without your trusty kitchen roll and somewhere to put it. Right, so we've got all sorts of interesting things happening here. There's some lovely effects. I don't know if you can see them there. I can't move this camera, but there's some lovely squidgy effects going in there. Nice softness coming round in the sky. Now, while that's still drying a bit, I'm going to do the foreground, which is sort of leafy, grassy, messy stuff. Now somewhere down here I've got those big black trees going up, so what I'm doing with this, I'm playing around with burnt umber and some of this neutral green tint, which is a lovely colour. And just playing around, putting some texture in, wet the paper, see how it all follows the water. Now most of this is going to get covered up anyway, and over here it's much more bushy, so I'm going to put Hooker's Green, Raw Sienna, a nice dark grassy green, put some clean water on there first. See how it pulls into the water. This is something you don't hear very often. It's me thinking. What I'm doing now is putting wet on dry. This is dried out, and I'm very gently putting another layer over it. If you press too hard or put too much water in, you'll lift up the underneath layer. So I'm trying to be a bit careful not to do that. Right, now starting to get a bit of interchange there. Some of the raw sienna, which is a lovely autumny colour, into this. All I'm trying to do here now is let the paint do the work. it's where I fail most drastically is that the whole point of this is that you mustn't fiddle. And I have got a terrible tendency to fiddle. And what you should be doing, and what I should be doing, is just putting dabs and let the paint make its own patterns so that it comes into almost organically into light and shade. It's very easy just to get carried away faffing. Faffing, that's a technical term. What does it mean? Fiddle and faff about. Now, each successive layer that I put on is thicker. Difficult to describe what I mean by thicker. It means there's more paint to the water, because if you put thin paint into thick paint, it spreads outwards. If you put thick paint, no, if you put thick paint into thin paint, it works. If you put thin paint in, no, even thinner paint into thin paint, it goes wrong. Well, there you go. That's how not to teach watercolouring. It's how to waffle when you should be thinking clearly. Just playing. Right, now I'm going to sit here and watch paint dry for a little while. Stretch it out a bit. This is a very knacky way of not having to bother stretching your paper. Just use a board just a little bit bigger than your paper, and then bulldog clip it. When it gets wet, if it swells out a bit, just pull it tight, and it always dries absolutely flat. This is fairly heavy duty paper. It's £140, and it's one of the things I like to use. Right, okay, while that is drying, I'll speed it along a little bit. So stand by for a horrible noise, because here comes the hairdryer. There. Now you should be able to see that's quite a bit drier than it was. I haven't tried that bit particularly much. I wanted to make sure this was dry because it's time to take the tape off. Now, what did I do? Oh, over there, I'll use this bit. I need clean fingers and there we go. If the paper is wet and the paint is wet around it, you can end up ripping stuff off. Now that is a very dry, soft brush, almost like a makeup brush, but it's not, it's squirrel hair. And there I'm just getting rid of all the little bits. Ugh, that one went in my coffee, never mind. Right, so there we have some white trees. Don't they look horrible, just all sticking out white? So now we need to make them look a bit like trees. So I'm going to use my little Pro Art number 6, which is Kolinsky Sable. Again, Pro Art are a good brand. They're not the most expensive, but it is Kolinsky Sable. And if you invest in decent brushes, like that one, that's pure sable, that's number 8, that's number 6. I'm mean, and I don't like spending money, but I've learned over the years that it is worth it with paintbrushes, because if you get good ones and look after them, they last forever. So now I'm mixing up a very, very dark, thick colour. It's there. I've used a bit of ultramarine, a bit of the neutral tint, and a bit of burnt umber in there. And let's see. Sun is going to be coming from that side, so this side of the trees are going to be in shade. Now, this is magic. Okay, let's get me number 8. No, I won't. I'll do it this way first. Get the number 6. Come down that side. Now there you go, they've got a shady side, and this is where the magic happens. Get my brush, clean water, not too wet. There you go, that's just clean water. Soften the edge, and your tree becomes magically round. Don't need to do any more to that. Again, this one, magic. Watercolour is magic when you get it to go properly. I just love the stuff. Right, okay, I'm going to have to lose the pointy end of those. So while everything else is nice and dry now, I'll get my pointy brush, and it's not a thin brush, but it comes to a lovely point. Get some of this darky colour. Rarely use black, but if you mix burnt umber and ultramarine and touch of that that alizarin crimson, and it gets to be as black as you need. Okay, so there we've got trees. Now, one of the things I love about silver birches is they've got this lovely brown, lovely bark. But at the bottom, where it's oldest, it all breaks up into fissures. Still a bit sudden. There. Now we're starting to get a bit of depth to it now because I've got strong contrasts here. Before I put the black trees which come out the front, I'm going to mix a slightly lighter dark, if that makes sense. And I'm going to do my hazel tree over here. I'm going to let that dry, and I'll put some bright colour on top of that. Right, now then, while I've still got the not quite so dark, I'm going to put some background trees in. Now, really careful to do these. I'm just going to go I'm letting the line take a walk. Trees are organic, as you know, and they don't very rarely grow in straight lines. Scotch pines do, but usually in a wood you've got your tree looking for light, and it sees a bit of sunlight, goes that way, and sees some more sunlight, goes that way, and that's how they get these twisted shapes. A bit darker on this side because I want this tree more visible as a tree. Put some shadows into this bit here, the impression of some roughness. Remember, the light's coming that way, so shadows will be the back to it. Now, the path is covered in dead leaves, so I'm using this raw sienna, touch of burnt sienna, and just a touch of the blue to kill it off. Still using this brush, putting some drifts of leaves across the path. And on the floor, while that's wet, put some darks into it. Keeping the brush strokes more horizontal. And over on that side, mix some lighter colours into that. Shadowy bits. Well, we're not far off now. I've got these big black trees to do here. But before I do that, I mix up some cadmium, yellow, and some of the transparent orange. I'm going to put a golden glow in there. Put some of that in the leaves on the floor. Now, mix up burnt umber, ultramarine, little dash of alizarin, some of that neutral tint. I should have very, very dark colour. Now, what's missing is these bits here. I'm going to put some sapling tree things. some very, very thick raw sienna on the light side of that. Bit more in this foreground. Mix fairly dry paint, get most of it off, and then you can make little flickies, which almost like clumpy bits of grass. Now there's not enough mixed in with that. Now, on top of this road, I'm gonna swish in a little light colour. I'm gonna use the raw sienna, just a touch of the yellow, I think. Need some branchesy things up there. Oops, too green. Must be the far side of the hill. Very old joke. I've just invented an ivy covered oak, which isn't there. That's how magic painting is, because it would have taken about 150 years for that to grow. but I can make it in seconds. Some more shadows. This is where I could kill it stone dead if I'm not careful. Now mix in the orange and the raw sienna, and this is more or less the same consistency as it is coming out the tube. Some of the yellow in. And some reeling, which is very, very golden yellow. If I can find a bit, I have dumped some green in. Because there's light coming in behind there, I'll do some dark ones as well. Right, most of this will be hidden by the mount, so I'm just dry brushing over there. Now, the alizarin mix into the really dark colour. The light's coming over there, so imagine a big tree over here, make a nice purpley colour, and we'll put a big shadow taken in the foreground. And really darks on the back of that tree. I think that'll do. Somewhere in here, there it is, there should be a mount. Put that on it. There, that's the ugly mug, got in the way of it a bit. So there we go. Autumn Sunshine, take that down a little bit. There. Autumn Sun, or something of that ilk. And there you go. So I hope you enjoyed that. Just to recap, we've got lots of wet in the back, letting the paint merge into these light yellowy greeny colours, and then strong sunshine in the foreground. I tried to get a bit of a golden glow in the middle there, and then we've got the just dampening the edge of that dark colour after I'd masked these off, and a bit more of the darky bits at the bottom. And there we go. That'll do. I'm faffing and fiddling now, so I shall leave that one as it is. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all soon, I hope. Straighten it out a bit. There we go. That's what I'm trying to show you, is the way those lights and darks blend in together. And there you have it. Okay, thanks for watching.